The third is the comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live in a comfort zone. So a confused mind will not make a decision. Therefore, what do? We fear something. So we are better off doing what we are currently doing because that is our comfort zone, even knowing that learning a new hobby or a new skill will get us more money in the future or more recognition. The second thing that you reminded me is a phrase from Carl Jung, who is a godfather of psychology, and he says, until you make your unconscious conscious, you're going to call it luck. A deep statement.
Yep.
I'm going to repeat it for your audience. Until you make your unconscious conscious, you're going to call it fate. And you're going to keep rolling and you're going to keep rolling. But when you make your unconscious conscious, now you have something to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my case, greedy bastard. When I became aware that I was not contributing, I was obligated to work. It was obligation versus contribution.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. I'm your co-host, Andy McDowell, founder and owner of Generate Your Value, providing self-leadership, leadership, and business coaching services for corporate executives and business owners.
And I'm Zach Levy, your other co-host. I run a nationwide financial service business with my wife, Megan.
Together, Zach and I have the intention to bring you tips, concepts, ideas, suggestions, stories, and analogies from A to Z, which will help you to grow your personal brand and leadership skills in such a way that joy, happiness, and success, as you define it for yourself, are achieved.
We hope to use our gifts, talents, and experiences in business and leadership to generate value in your life. And with that being said, let's move to our topic for today.
Hello, and welcome to the Generate Your Value podcast. My name is Andy McDowell, one of your co-hosts of the podcast. Unfortunately, my partner in crime, Zach Levy, won't be joining us today. But I thought I'd take the opportunity to hang out with a buddy. It's a couple days before Thanksgiving that we're recording this, and obviously Thanksgiving's about family, and so I consider our guest today to be family. He's a fellow executive coach, and we have kind of similar life stories. So I thought in the theme of Thanksgiving, it would be great for us to kind of share our stories, compare notes about self-leadership, and maybe talk about coaching a little bit in terms of what we're both seeing out there in the leadership world. But my buddy is Gagan Gupta, and he hails from the other side of the world in Australia. Doesn't look like your typical Australian, but he does live in Australia. So with the beauty of the internet and digital data and so forth, we're able to come to you from around the world and share our knowledge and expertise with you. So Gagan, great to have you with us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here. It's funny you say I'm from the other side. I feel like I'm a U.S. citizen now, considering how many clients I have in the U.S., especially in the East Coast and some in CST and Pacific time, but mainly in the Eastern Standard Time. I feel like I'm just living over there.
Well, maybe one
So
day
thank
you
you.
will. You never know what the
Maybe.
universe is going to bring for you, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So before we get started, let me read you his bio, and then we're going to dive into life stories. So Gagan's mission is to empower 10,000 senior executives, professionals, and conscious business leaders to achieve their full potential. In a world of 360-degree transformations, Gagan's journey from being suicidal to becoming a guiding light for conscious leaders and executives is a story in itself. And the biggest reason why I wanted to bring him on to the podcast today. With unwavering courage and adding in a unique blend of spirituality, Gagan helps others break free from the clutches of imposter syndrome and embrace a life filled with abundance, high self-worth, and a revitalized mindset. So, lots of words. right?
Yeah.
And not words that were maybe embraced in your heart when you started at a young age.
No, but I always dreamt of being of service to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And you reminded me of something, Andy. I wasn't going to share this, but when I was 13, other kids, and this is where I hail from actually, New Delhi, India, the capital of India, New Delhi. The other kids who were 13, teenagers, they were playing cricket on the road, shattering the glasses of passing by vehicles and houses, and I was inside reading Dale Carnegie, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, all the Stoics, Marcus
Mm-hmm.
Aurelius. So this is 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading our holy book, which is called the Gita, the equivalent of the Bible. I was doing all that. I was spiritual at that age. What I knew was that I meant for something bigger to serve. I just didn't know how. But I've always been tutoring other children 1 year below my age. So when I was 13, I was tutoring 12-year-olds. When I was 14, I was tutoring 13-year-olds. So it was always going to happen. I just didn't know it until a couple of years ago. So you're right. I had no idea that this is what I'll be doing. And everything, the universe has literally conspired in my favor to be able to be of service because it made me go through 2 decades of senior executive as a corporate in the corporate
Mm-hmm.
world. And that was for me to get ready to be of service to those executives that I'm helping now and business leaders and CEOs and helping them and their teams in different aspects of personal development. And I never thought that I'd do that, but here I am.
Yeah, I don't think I got to those readings until later in life. I wasn't at 13 years old. 13 years old, I was too busy trying to please my dad and playing sports, uh, and so forth. But I do remember in my college days, early in my college days, I had a fraternity brother that was Army ROTC. And my fraternity would go out for sporting events, competing against other fraternities, and he'd be on the sidelines, even if he wasn't playing, just storming up and down the sideline, cheering on people and inspiring people and so forth. And I just sat there saying to myself, "That's what I want to do."
Hmm.
Deep in my heart, somehow I want to find a way in my career to inspire people.
Yeah.
Just really resonated with me watching him do that.
Hmm.
So 13-year-old in India. When did the move happen to Australia for you?
2009, 10th of February 2003, I landed in Australia to study.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished my MBA and then just straight went into the corporate world.
So did your original university study in India, and then for the master's degree went to
Yeah,
Australia?
correct. So I did my bachelor's in India and master's. As you would probably know, most Indians and maybe even Asian cultures are big on education.
Mm-hmm.
Some even have two masters, right?
Right.
Yeah. Now, I'll say something which is um, not popular opinion, but people are now realizing that in my case, everything I learned in my bachelor's degree and my master's degree, I have not used one iota of that education.
Yeah. Electrical
Not
engineering
one
degree
iota.
for me, and I didn't do a whole lot of it in my career in aviation.
Yeah.
But having an engineering degree, I learned how to solve problems. This is what I tell folks that are in high school looking to go to engineering is you're going to get a degree and learn a lot about the specific engineering group, if you will, that you go to. But what you're really going to learn is how to pull apart problems and figure out solutions.
Hmm.
What the famous phrase coming out of my alma mater was, take your givens and solve. That's in essence
That's
in
good. Well,
engineering what you're going to do. Even if you got an engineering degree and do more business type work, you're still what you're given's. What are you trying to solve for?
or at least you got that out of it.
Yeah,
That's good work.
yeah.
That's great.
So, went and got your master's degree and went into the corporate world with what kind of hopes? What kind of goals?
I only had two goals always, and this is my past life, my old self.
Mm-hmm.
My two goals were I want to be a CEO one day and I want to make $1 million. And that's all I was worried about all the time. And I would happily share that I used to be a greedy bastard. At least that's what came up when I did some deep inner work, or started to do some deep inner work 2 years ago for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And deep inner work is a lifelong journey. And I realized that actually those goals were not my life goals. They were not my soul goals. They were my goals because I was comparing myself to others and I was judging all the time without even realizing. And now when I'm coaching other corporates and their teams, that's what I see. Without even knowing, they're constantly judging themselves and comparing. And comparison is a very easy way to just kill your self-doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Self-worth, sorry. To increase your self-doubt and kill your self-worth. Very easy way. It's a shortcut, right? So when you say what kind of hopes I had, I only had two dreams: to be a CEO one day, and I was actually interviewing CEOs. And one CEO said to me, be very careful what you wish for because you might actually get it.
Right.
Now, in my case, I didn't. However, I did get promoted 7 times because I had a very high drive to get promoted and to earn money. So I was a yes person. I was always working 12 to 13 hours. And in doing that, I burnt myself out.
Yeah, you were doing a lot of doing.
I wasn't being,
Right.
I was doing,
You were doing
right?
a lot of doing,
Yeah.
a lot of yes, all in the hopes of achieving that goal. What emotions do you think you felt like inside you were going to have if you reached your goals? The two goals that you originally set out for. What kind of emotions did that evoke for you prior to achieving it?
Well, it's a great question. Actually, I never achieved those two goals. I never hit $1 million a year.
But you were
And I
striving
never
towards
became
it.
Yeah, but it's funny you say that because now that I think of it, there was no feeling. I just wanted to do it because others have done it and others were doing it. And because I always thought that those people are respected more than any other people on the planet. People who are CEOs and people who make $1 million a year, because we're always talking about millionaires, your first $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
The word million is used so many times that for me it became like, okay, I've got to do this. So there was no feeling, it was just a competition.
Well, it was
And
about
I thought I'm going to be
respect.
happy.
It was about respect, right? That's the word that you
It's
used.
about approval. You're right. It's for me, now that I know a little bit more deeper about myself, I was seeking approval and attention and acceptance more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. You were looking outside yourself
Yes.
for that respect, which is important
Yeah.
in masculinity. One of the most important things of achievement that the masculine is looking for is respect.
Mm.
From that
Yeah.
perspective. But I think the key thing here is that you were looking outside yourself
Yes.
for that respect.
100%.
Even
I
if it
was.
meant that you couldn't respect yourself, you had no self-respect because you were, as your words, you were a greedy bastard,
I
right?
was.
And you may not have liked what you thought of yourself while you were doing it, but the goal was still be that millionaire, be that CEO, to earn a certain status, have respect of others, and then I've achieved something in life, and therefore we'll command that respect.
That's right, Andy, and you touched on something incredibly important. I think it's so crucial, critical, and everyone should pay attention to that. You said I was looking outside, and now I realize that 99.9% what's happening outside of us is usually a self-reflection of what's happening inside of us. So I was looking for that respect outside because I didn't respect myself. And people do that without realizing. It's fascinating how it works.
Yeah, that's
And this is why people complain. Sorry, just to
right.
finish off. This is why people complain about others most of the time, because what that means is they don't have to unpack their own emotions and they keep running away, they keep running away, and that becomes their reality. And as a person, they change their reality so much that it creates a new personality.
Yeah, it's a distraction, right? If I keep focusing on outside and going after these goals that are outside based,
Yeah.
then I don't have to look inside because all my focus is on the outside. And it's a natural distraction. I don't have to look at myself in the mirror and be afraid of what I see.
We fear, you're 100% right. The three common fears, fear of intensity, fear of emptiness, and fear of failure are the three common fears. And the biggest fear of all, which 80% of the population has, is the fear of public speaking. If you look at fear, public speaking is not the problem. The problem is we assume ourselves, people throwing tomatoes at us, which hasn't happened yet. So we are going into the future. We have two amazing faculties, memory and imagination. Our brain is an amazing machine, but it's also a garbage producing machine. So we go into the future and say, people are throwing tomatoes and my words are freezing. I can't speak. Then they bring those thoughts into their current reality and play it over and over and over again. And here's a truth bomb I'm going to throw at you and the audience, to people who are listening. It's actually the fear of death. How many times have we said to ourselves, if I do this, it's going to kill me? It's going to kill me if I do this. It's going to kill me if I do that.
The fear is going to be so overwhelming and so overpowering, like a hurricane, so to speak, that I'm literally going to die from this.
100%. And as Bruce Lee said, be very careful to what you speak to yourself about, even when your lips are not moving, because your body and your mind is always listening. So when we even think about the fact that this is going to kill me, that's what the body and the mind starts to believe. As we know, it takes only 21 or 66 days to form a new habit, but we've been thinking like that for decades. Guess what's going to happen? So even the thought of speaking in public or doing whatever it is you're afraid of makes you feel like you're going to die.
Yep. The feeling or the emotion is so strong and so overwhelming, literally overwhelming, that you think it's taken over your body. And if so, then that, I have to die from this because I'm not in command. I'm not in control of this situation because it's so overwhelming. And it's not something that's going to move through me. It's going to be permanent. It's always going to be there to the point where it just kills me, as opposed to it's not going to kill you. Yes, it may feel overwhelming, but it's an energy that's going to move through you. It's not going to hang out with you the whole time. Your first 2 minutes may be overwhelming, but it's going to move through you, and you're going to get more comfortable with it as you spend up more time and find that people are not throwing tomatoes at you. They're not getting up and leaving. They're listening to you. They're there because they want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, they may they may leave, but the message is that's okay.
That's right.
And with your permission, Andy, I'd like to share two things with you and your audience.
Sure.
Because you just reminded me of them. So thank you. The first one is it's important to understand the nature of what we are dealing with. And Brian Tracy says there's three enemies of success or time management. And you actually reminded me of that. The first one is that we practice learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was unable to do it once, now we are going into a little bit of a coaching territory, but because I was unable to do it once, I won't be able to do it again. The opposite is learned optimism. There's an amazing book by Martin, I think it's Spigman, I may be quoting it wrong, but amazing book, Learned Optimism. But we practice learned helplessness
Mm-hmm.
since the time we are in school. What do we do in school? Oh, we have a ranking system. At least we had that in India, where I'm out of 40 people, 40 students, my rank is 30th. So what do? I'm always judging and comparing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the culture.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing Brian Tracy talks about is the path to least resistance. You probably experience it in your coaching as well. Even when something is beneficial for people, they don't do it. I deal with people who are hardcore addicts, porn addicts, smoking
Mm-hmm.
addicts, and all kinds of addicts, right?
Going for the dopamine hit
Yeah, so
constantly.
they know it's not helpful, the
Mm-hmm.
path to least resistance, comfort zone. The third is the comfort zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
We live in a comfort zone. So a confused mind will not make a decision. Therefore, what do? We fear something, so we are better off doing what we are currently doing because that is our comfort zone, even knowing that learning a new hobby or a new skill will get us more money in the future or more recognition. The second thing that you reminded me is a phrase from Carl Jung, who is a godfather of psychology, and he says, until you make your unconscious conscious, you're going to call it luck. Deep statement.
Yep.
I'm going to repeat it for your audience. Until you make your unconscious conscious, you're going to call it fate. And you're going to keep rolling and you're going to keep rolling. But when you make your unconscious conscious, now you have something to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my case, greedy bastard. When I became aware that I was not contributing, I was obligated to work. It was obligation versus contribution. So I've thrown a few curveballs in there. I'm going to take a pause here.
But it's that
And
it's that making that unconscious conscious that you can begin to use intentionality to start creating the life that
100%.
you want for yourself, because it's no longer fate, it's no longer luck, it's you taking an ownership
100%.
of your life and saying, yes, I know there's some things I can control and some things I can't control, but those pieces that I can control, I'm going to start intentionally building a plan to build the life that I think and I hope will bring joy and happiness to my life every single day.
Yes.
And so I think your words are very powerful, bringing the unconscious to the conscious. All right, let's go back to your story. So you're climbing the corporate ladder. If I remember your story right, you climbed it up with one organization and you got up fairly high and then you kind of had an oh shit moment, like not happy.
No, you're right. Would you like me to unpack that?
Sure.
Okay. So this is 2020 or 2018 actually where it started to grow and I became conscious of it, that something is missing. I was
Mm-hmm.
earning $350,000 per annum, but it felt like something is missing. I just didn't understand what it is. But Andy,
From
that
from all the
hollowness,
doing,
yeah,
do.
yeah, there was no me time. It was just about just working because I had to make an impression.
Mm-hmm.
I had to seek approval and attention and acceptance. You know, 400 years ago, we used to live in tribes, and it was very important for us, for our system to approve, to get approved, and to seek attention because we didn't belong in the tribe if we didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's innate in us. Anyway, so for me, can you repeat the question again, Andy? I just got lost with the tribe story.
Well, we were talking about you've reached this status. You were
Oh,
doing
thank
all
you.
these things. You were looking outside
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
and you reached a number of promotions. You're earning
Yes.
six figures,
Yeah.
but you're taking a pause, and you're like, I'm not happy.
No. And then a job offer came along. I got so egoistic that I said to my CEO at the time that you're not giving me this promotion and I deserve it. I demand it.
Hmm.
And there is another company offering me $50,000 more and I'm going to go. And that's what I did.
Hmm.
He tried to match it, which is funny because he didn't when I was there, but he tried to match it and there I went. But that was my ego and I worked for a startup. 6 months, same story. Not happy. Started to do finger pointing, ego clashes, all that kind of jazz, and with the higher ups, right, with the grown ups and the higher ups.
Hmm.
And again, same thing happened. I resigned, and I got a new job offer within 2 days. This time again with more money and actually more incentives, far more incentives. And I was given total autonomy. And this time the universe upped the ante, and the company just fell flat on its belly in 2 months. Now this was a series of 7 companies they owned, but this particular company that I was hired to be the head honcho and manage multiple divisions and multiple states and people and create processes and whatnot, that's when it all just really, I don't have the right words for it, but it all just I really went into a negative spiral downturn curve because I hired people, friends of mine, from their stable jobs with families
Hmm.
to come and work for me in this new startup. And after 2 months, we all don't have a job. So more than me, I took it personally that they lost their jobs because it cost me some friendships, Andy.
Yeah.
And I went into depression. I didn't know it at the time. As Jim Carrey says, depression is actually deep rest. But this was happening in my heart for the last 3 or 4 years. I didn't realize. But when this happened, and I took responsibility for those 4 souls and their families who lost their jobs, not because of me, but that's what I thought at the time, I blamed myself. And I went into this hole. I locked myself into my room for 4 months. Started getting depressed and stressed about what's happened in the past. I got anxious about what's going to happen in the future. For the first time in my life, I wasn't getting tapped on my shoulder anymore. It was me going to give interviews, and I was getting knockback after knockback because that's the energy I was exuding. All the negative energy was coming through,
Well,
and I started getting
a negative impact to your personal brand, right? So you spent your career moving up, moving up, moving up. And in the meantime, that you're building a personal brand of success through these promotions, and then jumping ship to other companies, making more money, and so forth. And now all of a sudden, your personal brand takes a major hit,
yeah, yeah.
and that's why you're not getting tapped on the shoulder anymore.
That's when I became suicidal
Hmm.
without even realizing it. And my parents were sitting in the next room, not in the next suburb or in the next street, in the next room without realizing that their son is thinking about committing suicide. My friends who were speaking to me on a weekly basis didn't pick that up. And that is why it became my agenda when I came out of it to make sure that if I can save one Gagan at a time, my life would be of service. And then it became 100 people, and now it's 10,000.
Hmm.
That's why the figure 10,000, because if I can impact, that's my legacy, Andy. If before I die, Gagan Gupta, if I can impact 10,000 people to either make themselves a better version of themselves or not to see the dark side of life or stop them from committing suicide, even if there's one shred of doubt in their head about themselves and they're questioning their self-worth or they're on the verge of suicide, if I can help in any way, then that'll be my legacy, because then those people will pass it forward. Hopefully.
But I hope the listening audience is picking up on from our prior pieces of our conversation. You're looking outside of yourself all the time and doing to achieve these things that is going to then command respect from the world. And now all of a sudden you've hit a major milestone, a negative one, that causes the company to fold, affecting friends, family. That because you're still looking outside of yourself, that this depression and suicidal thoughts is the outcome, if you will, of that always looking outside yourself and achieving to get the respect. And then you get a major wrench thrown into that people might be able to see the reasons why you might have gone into a depression and suicidal thoughts if that's what you're doing all the time. But would you feel that's a good analysis? That's a good
Yeah,
logical
it is.
connect the dots, if you will?
100%. I was looking outside of me
Mm.
as opposed to looking inside of me. All the happiness, all the bliss, joy, and ecstasy, all the peace is already inside. You just need to look for it. And sometimes you need a little bit of a push. Like, you know how you jumpstart, or how we used to jumpstart cars?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need a jumpstart. And I got that jumpstart after 4 months of my depression period because I met someone and that changed my life and that led to something else and something else, and here I am. But at the time, I needed a jumpstart. And then my engine, as I would like to call it, became a steam engine, and now it's almost like a jet engine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of the inner work that I've been doing with myself. But most of us don't even realize that we need a jump start. We think we are perfect where we are
Yeah.
because we're not looking inside, we're looking outside.
But it took a major negative event for that jump start to happen for you. And it
Yeah.
happened for me too with a failed marriage as opposed to a failed business. For me, it was, this is not the life that I want for myself, and things need to change. And said, okay, out of the failed marriage, what do I need to own? What do I need to work on for myself to reduce the risk tremendously that my life is going to keep going on with these failed events in my life? Where do I need to improve and work on myself? And I'd have to imagine for yourself it was the same thing. I don't want failed businesses all the time. I don't want this feeling, these suicidal thoughts. What do I need to own of myself and go work on with the help of others?
100%.
I went to a therapist. You got help from somebody outside yourself with that jump start to figure out where is that failed alternator or bad gas pump or whatever that piece of the automobile, so to speak, it's not working.
No.
Right?
It's like we are directing a bad movie. It's bad cinema. Unfortunately, we are the director, producer, and the actor.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not happy with a life, it's got to be a long life. So, happy people have a short life. Miserable people have a long life. Right? So there was one common denominator in everything, in all those jobs. Me. I was always blaming somebody else, but I forgot to say that it's me who's job hopping. It's me who's looking outside. So I had to start looking inside, and I just changed the direction of my cinema, if I can use that analogy, right?
Right.
Just changed the actor. I just changed the production, the cinematography, whatever it is, screenplay, everything just changed just by one shift. And you said it better than me, by going inside as opposed to looking outside. And here's a tip for the audience, and it's a reminder for me. Journaling actually kick-started that process, even before I got help, because I started to write my emotions. An amazing thing happens when you start to write your emotions, because you start with the surface level problem. I'm not happy with XYZ. And then by the time you finish, and this had happened to me on my third day of writing, and I actually started by writing a suicidal note, but this is how it ended, with writing and journaling. But I ended up with the core problem, right? There's a surface level problem. It's like companies have a surface level problem: less sales, declining team morale, reducing customer retention. But really, the core problem is zero communication between the team, bad processes, ineffective leadership. Similarly, in our life, there are surface level problems and core problems. If you become conscious of your core problems, which comes through journaling, in my case and my client's case, 100% of the time, it may not come on day one, but it will come. And that leads me to another quote by my business coach and sales coach friend, Andy. We overestimate what we can achieve in the short term and underestimate what we can achieve in the long term.
Oh, yeah. Common startup problem.
Everyone wants to be a millionaire in the shortest possible time. Everyone today wants to know how to do a skill in 1 second or 1 minute with the advent of AI. Everybody wants everything quick, but we often forget the power of long-term planning. You look at Japanese and Chinese and Asian cultures, they plan in 200, 400 year increments. Fascinating concept. Literally, they plan in centuries, not decades, centuries, and we don't even plan the next 12 months.
How would you define the term self-leadership? What does that word mean to you?
The one word that came up is integrity, and that comes up when you become the best version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I did do good when I was in my corporate years is I always managed my team as if they are family members. Now, some people might get opposed to this idea or not like the idea, but I knew my team members' birthdays, their kids' birthday, their likes and dislikes, what kind of food they like, what are their hobbies, and I used to give them time off and days off. So it's very important to be a people's person, but going back to self-leadership, that comes from being happy and being the best version of yourself. So this is, I think, from, I'm forgetting the author's name, The Gap and the Gain. It'll come to me. But it talks about not comparing yourself to others, but comparing the gap that you have covered from where you were 3 months ago,
Right.
from where you were 6 months ago, right? So if you, again, we go back to stop comparing. If you are 0.001% better than you were yesterday, you are a bloody winner. And you are going to be an amazing leader because you're trying to become the best version of yourself. And when you do that, you want to pay it forward to your team and want to tell them to pay it forward to their team. So integrity, I believe, comes from being the best version of yourself.
Yeah, and I would call self-leadership the process of that, right? So how is it you're going to put well, first of all, you have to, this is where I love the game of golf so much, right? So if your best version of yourself is the hole in the middle of the green, right? And you're sitting on the tee box, that's where you're currently standing. That's your current situation. And your best version of yourself is the hole in the middle of the green. And let's say the hole is a dog leg to the left. You got to go down a certain way, straight ahead, and then you got to start hitting the ball to the left to get to the green. Okay. What's your strategy?
Great question.
How are you going to get yourself to the point where that ball goes into the hole in the middle of the green and you've achieved your goal of being your true self, your authentic self, the best version of yourself, your higher self,
Great question.
right? Are you gonna
Yeah.
pull out the driver and hit it 250 yards, and that gets you up towards the dog leg, and you can just hit a 7-iron up to the green? Or my driver is not my. I'm speaking about Andy McDowell and true life here. My driver is not my strength, right? I might pull out my 2-iron, and it won't go as far, but and it may take me 5 strokes to get there instead of 4. But the goal is not necessarily how many strokes it takes. The goal is that you put the ball in the hole. But how well do you know your strengths and weaknesses that you can leverage or push aside or whatever, or grow your weaknesses, whatever is necessary to get you to the point where you can put the ball in the hole? And to me, that's the process of self-leadership, is doing that introspection to know my putter is better than my irons, and my irons are better than my driver. I know that about myself, and I can meander my way down the hole knowing those strengths to get there, or I can go hire a golf coach to work on my driver to get stronger in that, so that as I'm going down the hole, I don't need as many strokes. Either way, you're going to get yourself there. But what's that strategy behind it to get yourself there? And to me, that's the process of self-leadership, is that introspection and establishing the goals for yourself to be the best version of yourself and working towards it, hitting that ball down the fairway. And it may take you a month, it may take you 10 years. Who cares? Just do it.
Yeah. By the way, I don't understand all those golf terms.
Okay.
But I do understand what you're trying to say and the questions. So I have to brush up on my golf skills and the terminology. But I agree with you, Andy. You've got to keep chipping away. And I was doing a workshop training yesterday on time management with a group of about 15 to 20 people, and this is what I shared, which I think may add value to what you said. And that is, are you doing everything in congruency of your values?
Mm-hmm.
So I live my life with 5 values. My 5 values that are non-negotiable are my spirituality, my family and friends, making a difference, my health, and then my wealth. So you see how I've come from being a greedy bastard and wanting to make $1 million to now wealth now being number 5. For me, it's my spirituality, my spiritual connection. My day starts with meditation and all the other things that makes me human being. Again, you touched on a brilliant topic throughout the conversation. Not doing, being. So my number 1 core value is spirituality. Everything I do has to be spiritually connected. I need to be happy, feeling joy, peace, and love in my heart when I'm doing it, right? That's why when you force something, it doesn't work. Number 2 for me is family and friends. Number 3, making a difference. Number 4 is wealth. Now, if everybody is, whether you're a leader or not, by the way, but definitely for leaders in terms of when you're managing organizations, if you do everything, all your actions are in congruency with your values, in talking in your terms, Andy, you're going to get to that hole in the middle of the green reasonably quicker than you would without that, because everything you're doing is making you happy. And when you're happy, you're on song. Your whole body language changes. And we have 4 faculties: body, mind, emotions, and soul.
And so guess what happens when you're doing it with integrity and your actions are in congruency with your integrity? People show up.
100%.
In a golf tournament, you're going to have more people standing around the hole watching you and cheering you on because they know that about you, right? As opposed to being the greedy bastard and you're not living in congruency with your integrity as a human being, and your values are all mixed up, how many people do you think are going to be standing on the side of the hole cheering you on?
Well,
You're
if
not going
you're
to be
a greedy
inspirational,
bastard,
right?
yeah, yeah. And I want to share with your audience, and this is coaching me. I'm always coaching me all the time, and I think everyone should. Is that you said something about integrity and values. It's gonna. I think I lost my chain of thought there, but uh, I'm just gonna say that what you said is right. With your values, you're gonna get to that hole quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And we go back to what is self leadership. It's about being having very high level of integrity, because people are going to see that through from your energy levels. Yep, it came back to me, Andy. It's a developed skill, meaning that if somebody in the audience, or I go back to myself last year when I was depressed, I used to think I have to be perfect the next day.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay where you are. It takes time to develop a skill, right?
Right.
It takes time to understand what your true values are. It takes time to act on them. And if they're really your true values, your body, your mind, your spirit, and your emotions are going to back you up. And that takes time. It could be 6 months, could be 3 months, could be a year. No one knows. But it's a developed skill. And I'm here to say it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're on the right track, you will see improvement every day. Little bit, but every day.
So our time is running short. I'd like to spend 5 minutes or so to get your viewpoint about coaching. So, what would you say are, you can talk at a high level or a specific level. What would you say is the number one or two things that get in the way of people that you coach? Whether it be there's
Self-doubt
self-doubt
and relationships.
and relationships. Okay.
100%. Because I have now coached more than 150 people. So I have a filing system, so I know how many people I've coached.
Mm-hmm.
Amongst the 150 people are people who are earning $80,000 a year, and there are people who are earning $5 million a year, right? Now that's the range of my clients right now. So that's a separate thing. I'm working on my own business niche moving forward, and I'm in the process of updating my website. But going back to those people, everyone says I want a promotion. Everyone says I want to scale, advance scale, and grow my business. Everyone says, I want to be a better version of myself. But there's two things when I start to unpack what's really happening. So remember core level, surface level?
Mm-hmm.
So at the surface, they want a promotion, they want more money, more income, status, acceptance, approval, attention, all those kind of jazz.
Do.
But I can tell you, Andy, in 90% of the cases, and that's being conservative, maybe it's 95,
Mm-hmm.
people actually have a problem in their relationships, or they are chopping their own legs. So we spoke about learned helplessness.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to tell you it's happening at the top level. Whether you're a CEO earning $5 million a year, or you are running a business turning over $50 million a year, or you're $500,000 salary and a general manager in a solar company, or you are just a representative, just started in an energy company, they all have mainly two issues on the surface. Sorry, at the bottom, core problem is either self-doubt, and that leads to other things,
Mm-hmm.
right? That repeated self-doubt leads to different kinds of fear that we spoke about.
Well, you start projecting
Fear
that fear in your relationships because of that self-doubt and fear that you have.
Imagine a CEO going to work every day with problems at home with the wife.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a general manager of a solar company going to work every day where the kids don't respect him.
Mm-hmm.
These are serious issues. Imagine somebody who's earning 100 grand a year and the values are not important of what they're making. Imagine anyone in the evening after work spending time with the family, but they are not present mentally. They are hearing, but they are not listening to the words.
Yep.
There's no purpose, meaning, and direction. When they're with the family, they're not with the family. And they turn up to work next day feeling guilty, and it's a vicious loop. Guilt, shame, and fear. The guilt is, oh, I'm not giving time to my family despite being there. I'm present physically, but not mentally, emotionally.
Right.
Shame, guilt, and fear. So shame starts to change to guilt, guilt starts to change to fear, and we've now spoken about fear a lot, right? So two things, self-doubt and relationship issues, meaning if you can have a high self-worth, the world will place the same value on you that you place on yourself. Going back to what you said, you look internally. If you think you're worth $1,000 an hour, my God, that's the energy you will exude, and you are worth $1,000 an hour. But if you think you're $50 an hour worth, that's what you are. And with your relationships, if you don't have them sorted, always going to be at the back of your head. Almost always. It doesn't mean that you won't perform. It just means that maybe you're a little bit away from being the best version of yourself. Maybe.
Well, it's just like your experience in your life story by looking outside yourself for those things. And always trying to achieve and do just brings that whole guilt, shame, fear, complex, trickle down that you talked about.
Yeah,
Right.
if you look at all the things like I'm just going to quickly wrap up by saying this. If you look at overwhelm, stress, depression, anything you look at, it actually starts from self-doubt. I went into depression because I doubted myself of my decision of bringing those people and joining the company.
As well as doubt
Myself.
about the future. If I did it now, I'm going to do it again. Right? So there's that self-doubt that you have an ability to change and maybe do things differently.
Yeah.
I could speak to you for hours, my friend. But unfortunately,
Same here.
our time is starting to dwindle down here quickly. If people wanted to reach out to you and engage with you as a coach, or talk to you about leadership, or talk to you about the game of golf, wink, wink. What would be the
It's
best?
very easy.
What would be the best way they could reach out to you?
All right, so two quick ways. They can either go to a very easy website to remember, fasttrackyourcareer.com.au, or they can just type Gagan Gupta on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Gagan Gupta on LinkedIn with that title of an executive life and career coach. So,
Yeah, I think that's safe to say.
so or easier, just fasttrackyourcareer.com.au.
Yeah. All right, my friend. You're not safe from this last question, because we ask it of every guest that comes on to the show.
Oh, yeah.
Because we like to collect the answers and see where that golden thread is between all the answers. So the question to you is, what do the words "generate your value" mean to you?
To me, it's two things. And this might throw further curveballs, but I'm going to say it. The two questions that arise for me when I hear that, Andy, is who can you be a hero to?
Mm-hmm.
And what's your legacy? If you can honestly answer these two questions, whether you're in business or you're a CEO or whether you're a senior employee or an executive, if you can answer these two questions of who can you be a hero to and what's your legacy, not only it's going to generate a lot of value for you, but for others as well.
Yeah, I was about to say the word value is embedded in those two questions. It's not present. It's not present
I think so.
in the questions. Physically, if you write them out on a piece of paper, the word value is not there, but between the lines, the word value is all over those two questions. Because to have a legacy, you're leaving some kind of value, positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, it takes introspection to ask yourself, what do you want your legacy to be? It's one thing to ask the question, what is your legacy? The other is, what do you want it to be?
That's right.
You got some things in control of your life that will enable you to leave the legacy that you desire to leave.
Mm-hmm.
But you
Yes.
got to have some self-leadership to get there.
Yes. Well said, Andy.
Well, our time has come to a close. If you're a regular listener on this podcast over the years, you know that Zach and I have a Generate Your Value hotel. It's virtual in nature, but we save a room for people that we want to bring back and have future dialogues with. And Gagan, I think we can safely say Zach and I are going to put a room up for you. Maybe we'll come back and do a love versus fear kind of episode or something of that nature that we weren't able to get to today.
Thank
but
you.
it's
Appreciate it.
these kinds of episodes that really get me excited because I think the amount of golden nuggets, if you will, in this conversation is just unlimited if people are paying attention. But I can't thank you enough for taking that valuable resource in your life called time that's limited to spend it with myself and our listening audience to share your wisdom, your life story, to be vulnerable and transparent with us about some things in life that aren't fun. Right?
Thank you, Andy. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know,
Thank you.
see the shadow side and how the shadow side kind of impacted your life and influenced it to put you where you are today. So that being said, we're a weekly podcast. Hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss an episode. This episode will come out during the holiday season, so we're hoping that your holiday season is going grand at the moment, that it's safe and happy and joyful for whatever situation that you find in life. We only wish the best for you here in the Generating Your Value podcast. So that being said, have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see you next time right here on the Generate Your... Thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Generate Your Value podcast. If you find our conversations to be useful in your life, I invite you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss an episode.
You can find me online at Instagram at _Zach.Levy, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
For information on my coaching services, visit my website at www.generateyourvalue.com. You can also find me and my company on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, and Instagram. Simply search for Generate Your Value on those platforms.
Once again, thanks for joining us for today's podcast, and we invite you to generate your value in this world.